Hello, everyone. Uh, very nice to be here with you. It's good morning for some, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on you are, what country you are. Today we are here. My name is Daniel Mota. We are here at SENAI CIMATEC, R&D institution in a university located at southeast of Brazil in the Salvador city, the state of Bahia. We are direct here to bring some topic that it's really important in this moment in the combat, in the fight against COVID, that is the ventilators. I mean, we started a project here in the end of March to maintain, to repair the ventilators. There are equipments really important in the fight against COVID, that the healthcare, the medical doctors, they need this kind of equipment. And then we start a network in Brazil to support the repair of these equipments. So today we are going to have with you two experts that will share their knowledge with us and the experience that CIMATEC developed during this month. We are going to have Rodrigo Coelho and Antonio Dupla. They are very important people that are related to that. Rodrigo Coelho is a PhD, has a doctorate degree in material science and also a mechanical engineer, and he is the researcher, the senior researcher of the metal forming and joining SENAI Innovation Institute in Brazil. Hi, Rodrigo, how are you? Nice to have you here, and it's important that you're going to share your experience with us.
Hello, Daniel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me to be here today to share with you some knowledge and the best practice that we are doing on the maintenance of those artificial machines that can keep the patients alive. So we will spend some time with you, explain the main procedure, what we are doing here, and I hope that you can join that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. It's very nice to have you here. And also we have Antonio Dupla. Antonio Dupla is an electrical engineer and is a specialist in clinical engineering. So he knows a lot about the ventilator itself, how it works, and he's going to have the opportunity to share this expertise, his knowledge with us today. Dupla, very good to have you here. Really nice for you to find time and be with us today.
Hello, Daniel. Hello, Rodrigo. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure meeting here with you. Thanks again for the invite. And I need to try to share a little what basic knowledge of ventilators and the management of healthcare indeed.
Great, great. I'll be right back with you. I just want to introduce what we are going to do once more. And I have a couple of slides to share with everybody. Actually, as I just presented before, we have a voluntary network with many companies. Just to give you a little bit of history about that, how it started. We started that in March, in the end of March this year, and then we decided that would be important not only to develop new ventilators, mechanical ventilators, but also to repair those that are already in the hospitals, in the medical care centers. So what we did was just to evaluate this kind of thing. You're going to see during the presentation that in Brazil, we are about 64,000 ventilators available, and maybe 6% of that is our estimation, needs repair. So it would get to us around 3,500, 4,000 ventilators that could be repaired. So, and then that's the whole idea of the project. And then when we started at CIMATEC in March, SENAI, the National Department of SENAI is a huge network of institutes that brings education, technology, and innovation. And we have more than 800 units around Brazil. So it's a really huge organization in Brazil. And then SENAI just took this and started to develop and to create a whole network of repair for this kind of equipment, the ventilators. So I would like to emphasize the names of each institution because they did that in a voluntary basis. So it's really important that you get to know these companies. So as I said before, SENAI is the one that's driving this activity, but we have also ArcelorMittal, we have BMW Group, we have Fiat Chrysler automotive industry, we have Ford Motor Company, we have General Motors, Honda, Hyundai, Moto, Brazil. So, and then we have also institutions like CIMATEC and the state of São Paulo, like the Technology Research Institute, the IPT, together with the University of São Paulo. Also in Rio de Janeiro, there is a center that needs this kind of equipment really fast. We have Jaguar Land Rover and Mercedes-Benz, Moto Honda, Renault, Scania, Toyota, Troller, all the companies not besides automotive industry and the mining company, Usiminas, Vale, but also Volkswagen and Volvo of Brazil. But of course, this activity, this initiative needs the support of government. And then we have the healthcare minister, we have the defense minister, the economy minister, the Agency of Industrial Development in Brazil, that's called ABDI, and of course, the Clinical Engineers Association. So the ABEClin that actually brings all the groups, the engineers, the clinical engineers together with this. So in the next slide, you're going to see what we have achieved right now, some statistics, and how as we started in March, in the end of March, but we have already right now active 39 maintenance centers. So we have 39 main maintenance sites where we receive this from the hospitals, they send this equipment to us, we repair, calibrate, test, and give it back to the hospital. So in total in Brazil, we are talking about more than 700 people already involved in this project and already receive, remember that I mentioned that we had in Brazil estimation of 3,500 or 4,000 equipments that need maintenance. We already received more than 2,600 in all these 39 maintenance centers. And we already repair 666 ventilators and return to the companies, to the hospitals. So we, of course, this kind of how many people use this kind of equipment will depend on the peak of the pandemic, but we have, for example, if one person needs 15 days in the use of the ventilator, we are talking a 2.5 months, around 5 people. So you can count that 600 multiplied by 5, and you're going to see that we have more than 3,000 people that can be benefit with this kind of project that we are developing. So telling you that I want to go through the agenda for today. We have 2 hours. I would really emphasize that you can come in the chat, in the live comment chat, and then you can put your questions. We will answer your questions during the presentations, but we already also have in the end of the presentations, we are going to have a session to discuss and to debate based on your questions. So please go there in the chat, send your questions to us, and we will be pleased to answer you. But I will, after I finish this opening, we are going to go with Rodrigo Coelho. Rodrigo will drive us during the cleaning and disinfection protocol. It's a really important stage in the process. We receive this kind of equipment from the hospitals. It comes from ICUs. So it's not only because of the virus, for the coronavirus, but it's also because it can bring all the bacteria and all the virus as well. And then we're going to go, we're going to jump that to Dupla. Dupla will bring us some information about the basic concepts, what we're going to do, how this, we have hundreds of models of ventilators available, but they share a basic concept. So Dupla will guide us during this basic concept, what we have. And of course, if you want to become infrastructure for the maintenance, you can also understand, we'll have the opportunity to understand what are the infrastructure that you need to develop. So of course, you need to have some special equipment and personnel that actually will be guiding these activities inside your maintenance center. So Dupla will bring us during this 10 minutes the necessary infrastructure for any institution that wants to become a maintenance center. And then I will go back to Rodrigo. Rodrigo will drive us through the flow, the maintenance flow. We didn't do that before. There was not an activity that any of the 39 maintenance centers developed before March this year. So we established a process, a flow, and then we want to share that with you. Also, Rodrigo will bring us some platform, how we share documents, how we share maintenance, technical maintenance guides with this network, the 39 centers and more than 700 people. And then we create a platform, develop a platform for cooperation. Actually, it's online, it's already available, this platform, but we are using this platform. So Rodrigo will have some minutes to bring through that with us. In the end of the presentation, we are going to get for some attention points. You're going to go through during this presentation, we're going to talk about that, but in the end, we're going to summarize the main attention points that you need to take care. And we also have a video to show for you to see how it works here at CIMATEC. Of course, each maintenance center has their own activities and their own environments to develop, but we're going to show you how we do that here at CIMATEC, and then we have 1.5 minutes video to guide you through that. Again, the questions and answers will be performed not only in the end, but also during the presentations. I want to bring that more dynamic for you, to not any of you to sleep. So we need you to be awake during this process. So we are going to have like a dynamic. Of course, there are presentations, and I would reinforce the importance that you to pay attention on this, and please bring your questions. And then the closing remarks for everybody, and then we finish this video conference or this live maybe in 2 hours. Right now in 1 hour and 50 minutes. So I will jump for the first presentation. Rodrigo, please join me in here. I would like you to go through that really important step for the cleaning and disinfection of the ventilators. Please, Rodrigo, the floor is with you. Have a nice presentation.
Thank you, Daniel. It's as I mentioned, it's a pleasure for me to be here today and share about the best what we can do here at SENAI CIMATEC and in this network regarding the maintenance of those mechanical ventilators. One big step that we need to take care is receiving those equipments here in our unit, where we need to clean and disinfect all the pieces, all the components, all the machine, as a whole machine. We need to clean and disinfect it to do a proper maintenance without the risk to contaminate our employees. So the first step, you can see here in this flow chart, the first step is to receive the material and the equipment, where we need to disinfect and clean the whole box where this equipment is coming with. The second part is to clean and disinfect the material itself, the equipment itself, which is inside. And then we have the whole procedure of the maintenance before we release the machine already repaired back to the hospitals. So we will go very in detail in all those steps on this flow chart, where we can pass and check the main characteristics of each point. So then the first point is on the receiving of the material equipment. So can move to the next one. So yep. So where our employee must use the proper vest. So you can see here one employee from SENAI CIMATEC, which is taking care about the machine when it's arriving in our institute. So he's wearing the glasses. He must use also some masks, some coating, lab coats, what we call apron. They also need to use a kind of a gloves, disposable gloves, where they can put this away after the day or after some hours of work. And he's also using the cap. You can see that he's covering the whole body in order to avoid any contact with the machine. So there it's a very important to have completely different areas where we will receive the equipment, and the second area where we will do the cleaning and disinfection of the equipment, and the third area, what we call a shipping area, which will flow the whole steps from the maintenance. These must be a completely separated areas and open and ventilated environmental, so that the virus or any kind of bacteria that can be in this equipment will simply spread along the air, and will be not confined together with our employee. This is a very, very important at the stage of receiving and doing the first cleaning of the equipment. So going to the first one where we receive. So the box are arriving in our institute with the whole material where I can check where this equipment belongs, when this equipment was tested, and when this equipment was maintained the last time, checking the whole points of defects, checking if some special attention must be done in some specific part of the equipment. So those documents are extremely necessary, and you cannot do anything without them. So the first thing is to check the documents that come with this material. Those equipments usually come in a large box, a paper box, most of them, where we need to clean the whole surface of those boxes. Here we are using kind of a sodium hypochlorite solution, an 0.1 to 0.5% concentration, and we can spread these using some sprayers. This is the best way to get the whole areas of the box, even those that are hiding, in the back part. So you need to lift the box and also spread the solution along the whole surface. This is extremely important because you don't know where this box were passing through, and you need to keep as safe as possible your employee and the atmosphere, the ecosystem where you are doing the maintenance. So this step, then you can use those sprays before you move the box to the next area, which we will open the box and remove the breathing equipment, those mechanical ventilators that is located inside. Then we will start to do the real cleaning and disinfection of the ventilators. This we are using here ethyl and isopropyl alcohol, 70%, as the whole regulations are recommending, and this must be applied on the surface of the equipment by means of a friction. Here you can use a kind of a paper, tall papers, and you can also use some flannels, that you can just embed this with the alcohol and pass along the whole surface. You can also use some sprays, with careful that these sprays are not getting inside of the equipment itself. So here our intention is to clean the equipment outside. So then I can use those towels, papers, and also some standard towels, just embedded on those isopropyl alcohol 70%. It must be highlighted that you need to cover the whole surface of the equipment. And if you have allocated areas which are more dirty than another areas, please start on the cleanest area and bring along to the dirtiest area. This is a way that you can avoid to spread the whole dirty, that you can, the moisture that you may have on the surface of those equipments to be spread along the whole surface. So after I clean, here you can see our guy doing those procedures using this isopropyl alcohol 70%. You see that he's using the whole equipment which is necessary. So he has the gloves, he has the vest, he has the goggles, the glasses and so on. So which it's extremely important to keep safe the workers, the employee. So he is holding here a flannel, where you can see that he's embedding this flannel with the alcohol before he put on the surface of the equipment to check the whole surface and even those connectors and all details of the machine. You need to clean carefully every connectors, every pieces of the machines, including also the cables. the energy cables and all the cables that come with the machine, you need to be careful to clean them properly, because they can be also a vector to bring the virus to our lab, So you can see that all the items that I'm using to clean, they are used to use one time, So you use this one time to do the cleaning of the surface, and then you will put this away in a proper box, where we will talk a bit more in front, So here you can see the details of the surface of this equipment, where I need to go along one side, never in this movement, never in both directions, only in one direction. Then I turn my flannel, embed this with the alcohol again, and then I pass again on the surface. With that, I can ensure that no contamination is spread along the surface of my equipment. So, and I can ensure that my employee is working in a safe way, that he is not putting in risk any of his co-workers and himself, because we need to be very careful when we are dealing with those hospitals equipments and health equipments, because as already highlighted, those equipments can bring not only the COVID-19, but also other bacteria and other viruses. So then we need to be very, very careful. After used, as I mentioned, I will discard those papers, toilet papers and flannels in a simple trash cans, where I will use these plastic bags and close this plastic bags, So I will not leave it open that may contaminate more the areas. It must be highlighted that any kind of bacteria or virus which are in contact with this alcohol will be already dead. But nevertheless, we must prevent all situations of dangers. So we keep those trash cans, we throw those items, discarded items there, and then we simply close the bags and send this to a proper paper or towel trash recycle, okay? So one item which is very, very important, it's those breathing circuits, what we also call tracheas. Those tracheas need to be very careful, cleaned and disinfected, because it can bring even more contamination to our workers, because this is directly in contact with the patients and where the breathing and the air is passing all the time. So what we do, they must be disassembled and cleaned, also embedded in the 70% ethyl alcohol. And you also need to put them in the plastic bags to do autoclaving if it's possible. It must be highlighted that our institute, we have here the autoclave. I can do this with the tracheas, but those institutes that don't have, it needs to ask the hospitals to send those tracheas already autoclaved, because the contamination of those pieces are very dangerous for our workers and can spread in an easy way the virus. So here are some ways that we can do if you do the cleaning method, where you need to use a kind of a detergent or alcohol to clean the surface, and the disinfection we do with this medium-high efficient detergent, and then dry and drain, using also the dry clothes before you clean with alcohol. Before that, you can also leave the machine for 30 minutes to rest, to be a kind of a quarantine and so on. And then you can put those machines to be embedded in the detergent, and then leave there for some period and remove and clean. And then you need to put in the bag and do the autoclaving of those tracheas. Those procedures are very specific for this equipment, for this component, and you need to follow the whole instructions that came on the manual, on the papers of those equipment, of those components. So after I do the whole cleaning procedure, as we already mentioned, I need to transport this equipment with all pieces that come along with to a shipping area. You can see here that another employee is picking up this equipment to bring it to what we call the traceability area, where I will check the whole operation system of this machine, check the alarms, check how is the cycling of this machine when I put it on the energy, and then I can hear and I can see which kind of maintenance these equipments are requested, are necessary to do. So then we have two big areas here to do the maintenance regarding electronic devices, electronic pieces and problems, and also for a mechanical problems, because perhaps a valve or a connector, it's broken and you need to replace this to a proper workability of the machine. So you can see that another employee is picking up the device, picking up the equipment with the whole pieces and accessories, and will bring this to the next area, which is the maintenance area. You can see that the vest of the collaborator, of the workers, it's fully covered by these vests, to avoid any directly contact with the machines. You can see that he's using the gloves. He's also using the glasses, and the cap to cover the hairs and so on. So in any aspect, the workers, it's protect against any kind of contaminations regarding virus or bacteria. So as I mentioned, when we talk about these breathing circuits, the tracheas, it must be very, very careful. So because as it is in contact with the patient, with the people, it can bring many disease, can bring any virus and also bacteria along with, and we need to clean it properly and we need to disinfect it properly. So as the standard procedure that I mentioned already, cleaning with 70%, doing the disinfection and also using the autoclaves. As I also mentioned, you can ask the hospitals and the clinics to already send those tracheas autoclaved, so that you don't need to repeat this procedure in your institution. It must be highlighted that before returning to the hospital, it's mandatory to do the autoclave on these pieces, which you need to have a collaboration with other institutes that have the autoclave, or even to a clinic or the hospital that have the proper machine to do this kind of disinfection. So in the end of all these steps, which I mentioned, what we should do with the protective equipment. So you need to remove and discard the gloves. This is the first thing that you should remove from your equipment. Then you will also remove the apron, which is covering the whole body. Okay, then you will wash your hand and disinfect your hand with soap or with alcohol. Okay, and to then remove the mask, starting from the back, never from the front, always from the back. And then you will wash your hand again and do the cleaning and disinfection of your hand, and then you are able to go back to your normal activities. You also can have those kind of tunnels where you will pass complete with the vests and so on to get sprayed. Do you know those kind of solutions that can also help to disinfect the whole body? Usually you do this procedure before removing any kind of personal protective equipment, the PPEs. So guys, after finishing the cleaning of your body, after cleaning the equipment and so on, so it's clear that you need also to clean the whole facility that you use to do the maintenance, to do the cleaning of these equipment. So you must use a kind of a soap with water to clean the floor, to clean the tables, to clean the instruments, and so on. So, and you can also use a kind of sanitary water to do the disinfection of those surface. And in the end, if you want, you can also spray a kind of isopropyl alcohol 70% to ensure that all surfaces are free of any kind of virus or bacteria. This is very important, as I mentioned, because the workers and the employees can be more, how can I say, can be more comfortable to work on those machines, because if the workers will be afraid to work on those places, then the worker will not proceed properly their activities. And we are talking about machines that are in contact directly with the patients. So we need to be careful, because those equipments can save a life. So guys, the same, it's where you are doing the maintenance of these machines. The second step after the cleaning, we are doing this in an open ambient, okay, that have also exhaustors, system that can suck the air, and recycle the air on these ambients to avoid any kind of stopped air on these areas, because many studies already have been published that says that the area must be ventilated as much as possible, and when it's possible, to use those kind of exhaust systems to even reinforce that the air is being removed all the time, So where you will open those equipments, when it's coming on the box, and when you start to disassemble the whole pieces, you must be sure that you have enough ventilator and the exhaustion system is working properly, that any kind of risk is avoided by the system. As I mentioned, to throw away the items that you use to clean, you can use those trash cans with bags, and then you put everything inside and you close. It must be highlighted that those are flannels and towels, papers, and so on that can be discarded in a proper way, just putting together in a paper or in another recycling bin that you have in your institute. So in order to release the equipment after the maintenance, what we are doing here, we are packing the whole system on those kind of a bubble wrap, where the equipment will be protected against any shock during the movement, So, and the breathing circuits, it's properly sealed in a plastic bag and goes along the equipment. Please remember, never split the pieces of the equipment. It must be walking through the whole facility in a single box, where the whole components and the whole pieces of a single machine, it's kept always together. Here you can see a picture of some of those mechanical ventilators that are so requested nowadays because of the pandemic, and all the procedure must be done in order that the hospital is receiving those machines in a safe way. So you need to disinfect, you need to clean the whole system before you send to the hospital, and you must pack it properly. It must be highlighted that you need also to send the paper where all activities that have been done on this equipment is described. All pieces that have been changed, all interventions on the pieces that you did. So any kind of details regarding the electronical maintenance, the mechanical maintenance, and also the cleaning way that you did on this system. This is a very, very important, where the people can see how you clean, the way that you clean, and what you use to clean. Because then the hospital is able to ask and to agree if this is enough, what you have done or not. Okay, the last slides from my talk, it's a general scheme where you can see the whole steps where I have talking today. So regarding the receiving and the first disinfection and cleaning of the machine, where our works must use the proper equipment to protect themselves. Okay, so I do the disinfection of the packing, then I do the equipment cleaning and disinfection. I check the whole surface cleaning with alcohol 70%, and the tracheas must be autoclaved. Okay, good. The second point is during the maintenance, where the workers will also use the whole individual equipments for protection, and then it must be done in an open environment to avoid any concentration of air, and always keep the 70% isopropyl alcohol in your side to use all the time in the small piece of the equipment also. Last but not least, you need to clean again and pack it properly to send it to the hospitals. Okay, I get back to you guys later on when we'll talk about the maintenance flux. It's with you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Rodrigo. Before I jump to Dupla, I'd like you to answer one question. I want you, everybody that is hearing us, that please don't be shy. Put your question on the air. If we know, we will answer. If you don't know, we'll tell you that we don't know, and we'll bring the question, the answer for you. But anyway, I want to bring one question from Leonardo Passos, Rodrigo, before I jump into Dupla. That he asking that you mentioned during the presentation the use for cleaning of the surface of the equipment alcohol to 70%. But can we use it with higher concentration, for instance 90% or higher? Can we use this higher concentration to clean the equipment? Please, can you answer that before I go to Dupla?
Yes, it's not recommended, because if you are using a higher concentration of alcohol, then the concentration of water in this solution, it's not enough to kill the virus that it's on the surface of this equipment. You need also to be careful against the damage that a higher concentration alcohol can do on the surface of your equipment and also to your own health, you know. So, but regarding the question, no, you must use the 70% because of the amount of water, the balance that I have in the solution, it's necessary to kill the virus.
Yeah, one important remark that I want to emphasize here is that, of course, if you don't have, for any reason, the 70% concentration alcohol, you can mix the one that you have, 90%, 95%, and when you mix that in the proportion that brings the 70%, and then you can mix that with water, and then you have the proper combination and the water enough to kill the virus. So that's one way. You can go for the 70%, or if you don't have the 70%, you can mix whatever you have with water, and then you can use this to kill the virus. Rodrigo, I will be back to you as soon as we finish with Dupla, but we are going to bring here now the comments and the information about the ventilator itself. So Dupla, I know that, as I mentioned already before, I know that you is an electrical engineer with a clinical engineering background, so you know many of these mechanical ventilators. I want you to bring us some guidance about the concept. We know that we have many models, many suppliers for this kind of ventilator, but I think that the basic concept, it remains the same, to mixture air compression with oxygen. So please bring us with your comments and your remarks on this topic. Thank you very much once more time.
Thanks again, Daniel. Oh, so the basic concepts of mechanical ventilators are so important to understand the function basic of the ventilation. The mechanical ventilation consists to use the device to assist the entry of the air into the lungs of respiration with flow in the patient. Now, the operation pushes the air into the lungs through a tube inserted into the trachea. Even the patient does not inhale. Exhalation is performed passively due to the elastic character of the lungs. You see in the picture, it's a control system. This control system is presetting the parameters of ventilation. You use in control of the insufflated flow. You use control of the inspiration volume, inspiration pressure. You control the gas system to mix the oxygen and the medicinal air in different concentrations to push inside the air for the patients and preset frequency, respiratory frequency, and use many sensors to control and check the common preset parameters for ventilations that defined for the medical team. Sorry. Okay, we have many regulatory standards for ventilators. The common regulatory standards is the lung ventilators for medical use 10651, and the lung ventilators and related equipment 19223. The health products and 14971, the 5356 and 5367 from anesthetic and respiratory equipment. The anesthetic equipment use a mechanical ventilator in your process because that is together in the same rule. And then the general rules for the medical ventilators is 6061 to 81 medical electrical equipment. It's defined all the rules of the medical equipment, medical device, and specifically for ventilators, it's good to mention the 60, 61, trace 1, trace 12. It's a good practice for manufacturing mechanical ventilators. Use it for fabricators and companies for calibration of these equipments. It's very important for specialized of the roles. For the clinical engineers, of the technicians, you have same models of the ventilators, same example of models in Brazil have Intermed, MagnaMed, Takaoka is manufacturers ventilators in Brazil. International ventilators have Mackay, Carrefusion, Puritan, Bennett, Braga, Hamilton. Only in Brazil have 65,000 of ventilators, 71% in the public healthcare system. And the ventilators have come back, please. The ventilators have many different programs and interface for the users. It's important to understand the basic concepts because if you don't understand, you don't know how to interact with for different types of interface systems. Next. In the basic of the ventilator, you see in the block diagrams the basic concepts. Now, many ventilators have a different architecture, but the basic of working is definite for this block diagram. Use pressure regulate valves, regulate the pressure, and the ventilator and try and regulate the flux, the flux of the patients. You use valve circuits to control the pressure, control the flux, control the flow, to the patients, and use a blender to mix the concentration of oxygen and medicinal air. Remember, the medicinal air have 21% of concentrate of oxygen, but many therapies defined for medical team use more concentrations of oxygen, 50, and sometimes 100% of concentration defined by medical team assistance. And use the respiratory circuit to control the flow of the patient, control the all parameters I said before, the insufflation volume, the insufflation pressure, the final pressure of inspiration. It's some important control. All about this, the parameters to guarantee the perfect safety care and the perfect therapy for the patients. And the control and the alarm circuits is a microprocess model responsible for control respiratory support for predetermined setting. The setting is predetermined for the medical team again. And the alarms is very important because the sound alarms and the visual alarms alert the team to make a fix if something go wrong in the ventilation in the therapy. The exhalation or respiratory valve. Oh, come back, please. The exhalation or respiratory valve, this valve has function the closing of the output circuit inhalation and open the output circuit exhalation. It is important to say that exhalation is very dangerous for the team because the aerosols of the patients be contaminated for COVID or another virus, another disease, and you need to put a HEPA filter in the eye valve in the patients or before the exhalation valve to clean the equipment. It's very important to use the protection equipment for the whole team in ICU. Next, please. Okay, the brief circuits is have a primary function to lead the air to the patients. Each model have a specific circuit because many different fabricants, many different circuits. In some case, the eye valve have a proximal circuit, proximal lining, and sometimes don't have the proximal line. They have many differences. It's very important that you send the ventilators with the complete briefing circuits. It's a high risk for contamination. As Rodrigo said before, is critical for the diagnostic and calibration steps. You need to put the ventilator to operate the same way if it operates in the patients, because that's when you need the brief circuits and need the test lung, simulates the physical condition of the lungs. It's indispensable for diagnostic and calibration steps. If you don't simulate the patients. It's very important and indispensable for the manutention and for the calibration. You simulate the conditions, ideal conditions of patients. The test looks is universal. You can purchase that up in the hospital equipment stores or donation for the hospitals.
Hi, just before we go to for infrastructure, there is one question, and I want to bring again Rodrigo with us. We will bring all the questions that you guys enter in the live, but I just want to get this one because this one I think would be a quite good combination with the presentation of Rodrigo and also your presentation, Dupla, because it brings what it can happen with the equipment if some of the material of the use of the alcohol get inside the equipment. So I can start that maybe with you, Dupla, and then I bring to Rodrigo. But the Marina Davis, she's asking, when cleaning the surface of the equipment and some of the alcohol enter the inner part, what will be the next action to take? I mean, what should we do if that happens? Of course, you're using embedded flannel, and then it's actually not too embedded the whole equipment with alcohol. But if that happens, what should be the action to be taken in order to avoid problems in the inner parts in the use of alcohol? Please, let's start that with Dupla, and then Rodrigo, you can complement, okay?
Okay, inside the equipment, it's obvious when you clean the equipment in outside, you need to disinfect, a little help, yeah. Then disinfect.
Yeah, you cannot plug in. The equipment must not be plug in the electrical net. I mean, you should be not turning on the equipment, right?
Exactly. And if you must plug off the battery, is good too. If the alcohol inside the equipment, plug off the battery and take the alcohol spread to the system on the time of evaporating.
Okay, great. So. Yeah, so if I understand right, Dupla, the first thing that you should do is never have plug in the equipment to do this kind of disinfection and cleaning process. So it's not in there, and also if you can plug off the battery as well, would be nice. And then if for some reason it happens, you let it evaporate for some time, and then it will be fine. I didn't mention about that. Maybe we can bring that later. I don't want to take now because you have your presentation, but Rodrigo, we can bring it later, the importance of the quarantine of the equipment that we use here for 48 hours. But I know that when we are talking with countries that are actually a colder environment, so it might take a longer time. So I don't want you to maybe take your time right now with that question, but the quarantine after the cleaning is really important. And during this quarantine, I mean, the evaporation of this remaining alcohol in the system will happen, right? But please, Rodrigo, complement, please.
Yes. First, when we receive this equipment and we are doing the disinfection and the cleaning of the surface, all this part must be without energy. The equipment is not started. So then you don't have the risk of any damage when you have some, how can I say, some small amount of alcohol just get inside of those opening parts. When we are doing the disinfection and the cleaning of the components inside of the machine, when we disassemble this machine, then of course you need to remove the battery, you need to unplug this machine from the energy source, because you cannot have the risk of making any damage on the equipment. So, and it's important to mention that we have the quarantine, as Daniel mentioned, and I will bring back to this theme later on. But it's a simple way that I put the equipment to rest for 48 hours to ensure that the whole bacteria and all alcohol that were embedded in some small part of this equipment is evaporated before I put energy on the system.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Dupla, please continue. I think that right now it's really another important topic, important presentation, that anybody that is watching us that wants to develop their own infrastructure, what actually it's required for that. So please talk about the equipment, but also, if you can, please bring us some comments about the personnel that is required for doing that. I know that during the presentations we will have opportunity to talk about that, but feel free to bring us all your attention points in this part of the presentation. Thank you. It's with you again.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. The infrastructure is very important thing. You say you need the first thing you need is a capacity team to make the maintenance of the equipments, the clinical engineers, technicians for medical devices, electronic technicians is very important. Principal specialized in mechanical ventilators. For the electronic maintenance, you have same device. You need to have a digital oscilloscope, a digital voltage source, a digital multimeter to test any components, to test any circuit boards. Is necessary to test all the parts of the electronic device, and need to next please. Need to optical microscope to see the micro components is damaged. You need the electronic board workstation to repair and replace the electronic supplies. You have many electronic supplies, the resistors, the capacitors, the LEDs. If you need to change your electronic supplies, please don't change the project. If you change a 2K ohm, a capacity 2K ohm resistor, replace for another 2K ohm resistor. It's very important. You don't change the projects of the ventilator of the fabricant. If you change that, it's in Brazil, it's a crime. I don't know in the other countries, but it's very dangerous. Change electronic supplies. Avoid the project because cause same damage or disprogram the normal operation of ventilator. And using a mechanical ventilation, 3D scanners and the right quality 3D printer to make plastic parts, to replace damaged plastic parts or missing plastic parts. It have some difficulty to buy in these moments of the pandemic. Same parts of plastic of the manufacturers, but you can scanner and print these parts in the mechanical of a 3D printer in the mechanical and replace the parts so you're missing all damage. So in the same way, use the tooling and for manufacturer mechanical parts to make the other parts you needed of the clinical engineers and specialized technicians of medical rental cars use to create the components to test on other components to the right flow, the right pressures, don't have a leak. It's very important have the clinical engineer and the technicians for use these machines to orientate the team to make the correct mechanical parts. When I say the equipment is be cycled for the same way the cycle of the patients and need to use the oxygen cylinders and medical air compression. The medical air compressor is very important. It's a void of oil, of water. You have the dry system, the filter and dry system to guarantee that not water is pushed for inside the ventilator. It's very dangerous. And use the specific valves to regulate the pressure inside before they decide the puts inside the ventilators. Same valves of medical air compressions and medical air compression tube. The integration, the calibration testing simulates the patients. It's necessary to test along the complete brief circuit of the patients, of the sensor of flow, sensor of oxygen, the oscillatory valve. Use the test along. You connect to the mechanical ventilator analyzer. And the mechanical ventilator is analysis if you do the preset therapy of the ventilators is correctly working. If you put a one pressure inside and the ventilator don't do it. It's very dangerous for the patients. A right pressure spot collapse the lung of the patients is very dangerous. Not calibrate ventilator is very dangerous for patients. Almost not have a ventilator. And the electrical safety analysis is necessary to test the chance of the discharge and the escape discharge of the patients is very dangerous for your heart. It's caused a fibrillator and it's damage of the patients. It's very dangerous, and you need a clinical engineer, electrical engineer, and the technician specialized for that, for take the old tests for guarantee the safety of operation of the mechanical ventilator.
Tupla, I have actually, before we jump to Rodrigo, I have one question, actually two questions. One is actually I want to emphasize something, and the other we have a question from the people that are watching us the live right now. But you mentioned about the calibration process. At CIMATEC, we are, I think that today or latest tomorrow, we are going to achieve an important mark of repair of ventilators. I mean, we are going to get for 100 ventilator repair only in one maintenance site. That's our site that is together with Ford and Global Energy together with us. So, but anyway, we are getting to this important number that is 100 ventilators repair. And I want to bring these that you just mentioned about the calibration process and all that is related to electrical safety. How is the process that we do here at CIMATEC? It's how every of these parts of these ventilators are calibrated and tested, or only one part? I mean, we are doing that for 100%, 50%. I mean, how many of these should be calibrated? I know that you mentioned about that, but I want to emphasize the importance of the calibration in the process. Please, can you answer that for me?
We need to calibration all ventilators. When you make the maintenance of the ventilators, you put off the circuit boards. You change need a little help, Mangueira.
The tube. You need to change the tube. If you change the tube,
you change internal tubes. and it's mixed, it's changed the natural mechanic of ventilation, and you need to make adjustments for the ventilator working for the program. If the ventilator don't work correctly, it's very dangerous. And all ventilators put in the calibration table, test for all parameters, so many times, following the ICO rules and the principles of metrology. And if the ventilators do not pass after the calibration, he back for the diagnostic table to manual fine adjustments to have sure the ventilator is functioning correctly.
And it's not unusual that to happen, right? I mean, it's usually maybe 30% of the ventilator that go to calibration need to return for fine adjustment. I mean, it's not unusual that it goes and need to return. I mean, that's something that emphasizes even more the needs to calibrate and to test 100% of the ventilators before we send it back to the hospital, right?
Exactly. When I say when you change the parts of the ventilators, you have a chance to change the normal function of that. If you change the normal function, you program a pressure inspiration for 30 PSI, and the ventilation make a 40 PSI. It's very dangerous to patients. You back to diagnostic, back to maintenance for fine adjustment for the calibration for the pressure ventilators correctly for the program.
Okay, great. I have one question, and I will leave it for you to decide who wants to answer that. But because I think that you both can do it. That it comes from Carlos Acienegas, and he is asking, can I use alcohol to clean the displays? I mean, we have many of these ventilators that come with display, but he wants to know if we can use alcohol as well to clean these displays, or if we should avoid to because it would damage somehow these displays. Maybe Dupla, can you help us on that?
Okay, don't have a problem if you commonly use the alcohol every time. It's a long time. It's make a damage for the display. But one time or two times, not have a problem. The hospital use another substance not aggressive for the display.
Yeah, great. Rodrigo, do you think that do you want to comment anything? I mean, Dupla just said that if we use for a long time, every time we use alcohol, maybe you can damage the film or something like that. Rodrigo.
Yes, exactly. I think Dupla already answered very good that in the hospitals, we have a special solution to do this kind of cleaning on displays. So if you are using alcohol to clean those glasses that usually have a kind of a filmed top, this can, with the time, damage, and you can destroy the display of your machine.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. There are questions. I would hold that to the end as well, just to put it that dynamically during our conversation here. Thank you, Dupla. Very informative, your presentations. I think that it actually helps a lot the people that is not only the ones that want to start the process, but also those who already started the process of repairing these kind of ventilators. Thank you very much. Rodrigo, can you drive us through the flow process? I mean, we started in the end of March. We did not have any previous knowledge about the maintenance process of this ventilator. We developed a team together with the clinical engineers and the technicians. That is also important to mention that, the technician for biomedical equipment. But we have to develop a flow process to stage, to areas to develop that. Can you drive us to the flow and operation instructions for the ventilator, please?
Sure. So I think, Daniel, you were very happy to mention this information to us, because as you know, SENAI CIMATEC, it's a research and development institute that brings innovation to the industry here in Brazil. So, and due to the pandemic, doing the necessity of the whole clinics and hospitals, we start to have, together with the SENAI National Department, some actions that could help us to pass with less pain through this COVID pandemic. So, and we start then this action to produce a kind of a line where we can do the maintenance on those ventilators. We already mentioned today about the necessity of the disinfection and the cleaning on the equipment when it's arriving to our institute. Now I will talk to you guys about the whole flow that we are doing, the whole steps that we are following here at CIMATEC to do this kind of calibration and maintenance. The engineer Dupla already mentioned to you the whole infrastructure, the equipment, the accessories that we need to do this kind of maintenance. And now I'm happy to present to you all those steps, starting, of course, with the receiving of this equipment. And to do so, you need to kind of create an ecosystem in your city, in your state, where you can check together with the hospitals, with the clinics, with the intensive care units, how many equipments are just on hold because of maintenance. So we already figure out this here in our region, and surprisingly, we figure out equipments 3 years stopped, 5 years stopped, and missing a simple changing of batteries or changing the energy source cables and so on. So then you have a variation of maintenance requests and levels, so that we need to act. But to do that, you need to map together with the hospitals and clinics the units that are there damaged, that need to be repaired. You can get also support for your local industry. Here we have this ecosystem working very good together with Global and Ford. So where the companies are helping us to do the maintenance, where we were training together with the clinical engineers, training those technicians to do the maintenance, okay? And the companies can also help with the logistics to bring up the equipment to us and also to bring back the equipment to the hospitals. They can also map where they need to go to pick up a kind of a piece or component that need to be replaced in these machines. Okay, so you need to prepare, of course, the service order, which is the document where you can check all informations about the equipment and also when this equipment was maintained for the last time. What happened to this equipment? The whole historical, it's there in this service order, which will come together with the equipment for the control of the equipment. And also you need, of course, to do the traceability after the maintenance. And you will see which kind of piece were changed, which kind of cleaners, which kind of materials you used, and so on and so on. So this ecosystem, together with the industry and the documents, and of course with your local government, it's necessary to run all this plan. So this was possible because we are in constantly contact with the local industry, hospitals, and so on. So in the first step of this flux, on this flow of the maintenance, it's, as I mentioned, the receiving of this equipment, where I will register everything regarding this equipment, the protocols, and so on, see which kind of hospital or clinics is the owner of this machine, because each machine must be properly identified to avoid any kind of mixture. You cannot change any piece with the other machines. So then the second step is to do the sanitization and the disinfection of these machines. This procedure are already covered, where you use a kind of flannels or those paper towels embedded in alcohol to clean the whole surface. And in the case of the tracheas, the tubes where you need to bring the air, you use the autoclave as well. So the third part there, it's what we call a kind of screening, you know, where you will identify, you will mark all your equipment with adhesives, you know, or with colors, or with any kind of procedure that you have there in your company, in order to keep the pieces of the equipment moving together with the equipment, never separated, because otherwise you can lose the control of this all flowing of the equipment in your maintenance area. Once that I know exactly the identification and the historical facts of this equipment, I'm able to go and to start my maintenance. And this is starting with cycling the equipment, doing some tests with this equipment, where I can see by the alarms and by the noise and the signals of the equipment which kind of maintenance this equipment is requested. So I can go for electronic maintenance and also for mechanical maintenance, and even both. Most of the time, I also need to change a kind of a plug, mechanical interlock fastening, you know, that is just breaking down the tip. Maybe this is the case and I need to repair, or using some glue, or even some 3D printing with polymeric materials, where I can fix with in a proper way those mechanical parts. On the electronical maintenance, as I mentioned, we have some guidance already, and the experience for the previous machines that arrived here says that those maintenance usually are with batteries or with some kind of soldering of the wires on the electronic components and so on that need to be replaced or repaired. Afterwards, as Dupla already mentioned, I need to go to the step 6, where I will do the calibration and the tests of the equipment after the maintenance. And here we must, most of the time, I would say 30%, 35%, return the equipment to do a kind of a fine adjustment, fine maintenance, to ensure that the equipment is working properly. Okay, this is necessary before I start to clean again my machine, clean again the whole pieces of my equipment, to finally pack everything and ship back to the hospital. We will go through all these stages there from 1 to 7, and I'm happy to start to talk about the receiving of this equipment. As I mentioned, guys, the workers need to be with the whole individual equipment, protective equipment, with the gloves, with the mask, with the glass, and so on. So I think most of you already know those equipments by the worldwide health advisor, that it's also mentioning this on television, in the journals. So you need to ensure that your employees is having all this support, all these facilities and equipment. And then when the machine is arriving to us, you need to register, doing some pictures, putting some adhesives, you know, that I can do the traceability of this equipment anytime, so that I know which kind of equipment which is this one, so, and where this belong, and what is the historical case of this equipment. I need also to assign a number to this equipment that I can control later on my KPIs. So I need to check how is the statistics of my maintenance, to maybe improve some parts or some labs, do you know, in order to have more and more lean process on my maintenance, and in the end I can ensure that more equipment will be repaired in this process. So after I identify these equipments and checking the documents and making some pictures for registering, I will do the sanitization and the cleaning, disinfection of my equipment. This is already mentioned to you before, guys. I would just want to highlight some main points here, where we need to use this alcohol 70% with some flannels and papers, towels papers, okay? Afterwards, I will discard this in a simple trash bag, where I will close and send this for recycling or for your collecting in the institute, So the tracheas, where I need to also clean very, very careful, which is the tubes where the air is coming and going out. So I need to use 70% alcohol, and afterwards I also need to do the autoclave of these pieces. I need to ensure that the humidity and the temperature, it's killing the whole virus and bacteria that I have in this system, okay? Afterwards, after I have everything cleaned and disinfected, I will transport this to the station where another guy will come and pick up these machines and bring this to what we call the screening, where I will start to do kind of tests on my equipment to check which kind of problem it may have, that I can repair when it's necessary, precisely, without losing so much time. And here, guys, it's very, very mandatory that you check the documents of your equipment. So the manuals, here in Brazil, the Organization for Health in Brazil, it's displaying there on the homepage all manuals of those machines for public. So you can go there, download, and read this careful to check where is the critical points and how can I test those points. This is very, very important. And here, the clinical engineers also can have important point, because they are familiar with those tests and they are very precise on determine exactly where you have the necessity for maintenance. So you can also check the manufacturing page of those device, of those equipments, because most of them are also displaying these manuals for download there. You can just go there and download the manuals. And you also have a kind of a service manuals. This is very, very hard to find, but with patience you can also find in the internet or contacting directly the owner of the equipment, because usually this come also along with the equipment. So this must be the whole documentations that you can ask in the hospitals and the clinics and the owner of the equipment, and can also discuss this with the engineer, the clinical engineers that can support you, okay? And here I start to make a kind of a calibration test, initial tests on my device, on my equipment, to see how this is, how is the answers of my setup. I do a kind of a cycling on the equipment to check the alarms, the noise, and so on. And finally to decide, okay, maybe the problem here, it's on my electronical circuit, or it's in the battery, or it's the mechanical compressors that is not working properly, and so on, or it's the valves, and so on. So here it's a simple first check how the machine is looking like and where I will guide the machine for maintenance afterwards. So passing through this screening area, where we also call a traceability, where I will track the whole possible problems on my machine, I will go for my electronic maintenance. As I mentioned, again, the employee must be working with the individual protective equipment, okay, this protective personal equipment, the PPE, okay, all of them with the glass, with the gloves, so with the vests and so on, to afterwards get in contact with the machine, So the alarms that we registered on the previous stage of the maintenance will guide us, for example, to change a battery or to do some repairing on the electronic parts. So damage on the electric key. So if I need to change some plugs on some fuzzles inside, so I can also have problems on sensors and so on. So cold welding or soldering, I can also have some kind of problems that need to be repaired. And these I will check on the electronic maintenance. Here, guys, you need to be careful because the parts cannot be mixed. That's why one of the key points for our maintenance to be successful is to go with the machine, a complete machine with the accessories and the main parts all together along the line for maintenance. So the point number 5 there, this is the next stage, is the mechanical maintenance. As I mentioned to you also, perhaps a simple fastening, it's broken, do you know, and need to be replaced, the mechanical fastening. So, and these parts I can also produce using some kind of 3D printing, do you know? So, or some connectors that were broken because of the usage and the time, do you know, because it gets to dry in this ambience of air conditions and so on. The rings also can be somehow damaged and you need to replace this by original parts, do you know? So, and this you can find in your chain of supplier. That's why it's important to be in contact with the hospitals and the clinics, because they have the contact of all chain on the production line, you know. So you can also have, in terms of mechanical maintenance, problems on the pistons and the compressors, internal compressors, you know, that you need to replace in the case of damage. So the valves can be also out of regulation, and you also can calibrate some of them, or even if necessary to replace when the calibration is not working anymore. So once that I complete the whole maintenance part, I will do the final calibration and the tests of my equipment. It's clear, the engineer Dupla already mentioned to you the main equipment that I need there. So to check my electronic parts, to energize and to check how is the charging along my equipment. If I have some electronic discharging, also I need to control these levels and so on. So I will do the whole calibration of the system and the tests. And if necessary, I bring back to my maintenance stage again, that I can replace or adjust some pieces to work properly afterwards. Guys, again, we are talking about lives, you know, we are talking that this machine, each of these machine, once that it's back in the hospital, can save up to 5-6 lives that it's necessary, the critical, that is passing through the critical phase of this pandemic, of this virus, where it's necessary to use those artificial ventilators. So, and we need to be very, very careful here. All tests as much as possible, following the manuals and all the guidance that comes with the machines and the experience from our clinical engineers colleagues. So it's necessary to do it in a proper way. Once that they are calibrated, I will send it back. I will clean and then send back to the hospitals, which is our step number 7, where I will wrap this in a proper bubble plastic, you know. So, and I will ensure that the whole parts are cleaned and disinfected again before I send these, that the tracheas are, of course, autoclaved before I send it to the hospitals, and the documentation of these all interventions that we did on the machine must be highlighted in the document, what we call the protocol of the maintenance, where all informations, everything that we did, all steps, how long does it take, which atmosphere the equipments were exposed, and so on, all information must be registered there together with the stick, which you will lock the machine, and you cannot allow anybody to open again. If this lock is broken, it's necessary to bring back to us, that we can finish and do again the calibration before sending to the hospitals again. Okay, so saying that, guys, I will spend more some few words. Can go to the next slide. So, and I will show you what we consider the ideal scenario to do this maintenance. It's a video where you will see a car bringing this equipment to us, and we have a receiving area where we will register the details about this equipment and take the whole documentation. Then we go to the area of cleaning and disinfection, where we will need to stay there some hours, and in some case 48 hours of quarantine before I go to the inspection and the first diagnose, where I will cycle and test the equipment. And then I have both areas for electric and mechanical maintenance, and I have also a small area to do the calibration. It must be highlighted that this calibration is running all the time. Sometimes I'm doing the maintenance and I bring this to the calibration and I go back to the maintenance to ensure that everything is working fine. And then I go to my last stage, where I will bring back this equipment to the hospitals. So this is a simple simulation of the place that we suggest you guys to do. So it's very clear that each area has their own place, and the workers are working in a safe way with enough distance from each other to ensure that they are not putting in risk the health of them and the other colleagues. So here's some final suggestion on this flow of maintenance, where, as I mentioned already, you need to keep the equipment always together, in a continuous flow, one device at each time. It's a unitary movement to do not mix the equipment to each other, and the identification of the equipment must be in a clear way, using some sticks or some colors or some other identification. You can also use a kind of a management system, like a warehouse management system or other platforms and so on, where you will insert the whole details of your equipment and all activities along this equipment during the maintenance, okay? So this maintenance sheet, it's very important, must be everything registered there. And during the process, please check the time of each stage, because for sure you will see that you can implement some very simple actions on the topic of lean manufacturing and lean maintenance, that you can save time while you are doing the maintenance of your equipment. Okay.
Rodrigo, I just want, before you go for the next presentation, and I would like to bring Dupla as well for the table here to discuss. I want to go for some questions, and I try to bring the questions according to what we are talking about. I would like to emphasize and repeat that we are going to go through all questions that you send in the live comments. But Kenny Banda just questioned us about one thing that we started to talk, but I even mentioned at that time that I want to bring that later. So I think now is the time. For example, we are talking about the quarantine. So you explained during not only the first presentation, but your second presentation, the importance of the quarantine. And the question of Kenny is related if we can do that before cleaning. If we do that, if you do the quarantine before cleaning, if it helps to reduce the virus and bacteria. So I also try to, that's why I brought Dupla, because I think that's really connected to some presentation that Dupla just brought. And I think to emphasize, and please just add in your answer, why do we do the quarantine after the cleaning, and why it takes for us 48 hours, and how in other countries that has a colder weather, what they should do. So maybe Dupla can also help us to understand that. I mean, we do that process here, we clean using the alcohol, as you mentioned, and then we leave it there. And then I would like you guys to talk about why we do that. Why should we wait for 48 hours after cleaning? And how, if you can also comment about the internal parts, how we should do and why this quarantine is important. And also, of course, answer the Kenny questions about if we do that before cleaning, is that better or worse?
Okay, me first.
Yeah, whatever you decide. Go ahead.
Okay, I have so many research about the time of life of the coronavirus and different surface and different climate, different different temperature of the air,
Yes.
and how much the hot the temperature may so little time to lifetime of the virus. But if you have more cold, the lifetime of the virus extended.
Yeah, yes.
In Brazil, the tropical climate of 48 hours is sufficient, but in the cold climate, is more time is necessary. I suggest I suggest to find it research for time life of the virus of in your country of your client to decide the time of the quarantine of the equipments.
Yeah, so you're saying that it's important that the time of quarantine should be decided depending on the weather, the tropical weather of the country. If it's colder, of course, the virus lives more, so you need more time of quarantine. If it's hotter, like we have here, so 48 hours would be enough. So the recommendation is that you go for anybody or any institution that can recommend it, how much it would take the quarantine over there. Okay, great. That's really nice, your comment. But going back to the question, I mean, should the quarantine be established before or after cleaning?
Okay, I don't have research specifically for this topic, but if you put the quarantine before, you wait the normal virus, normal lifetime virus to end, and clean afterwards if not necessary. But if you clean before the quarantine, you put the same substance for 15% alcohol in the virus, and you end the time life of virus. The quarantine is because the internal parts of the ventilators, not because these external parts, if you clean for the disinfection substance.
Okay, great. Do you want to comment anything on that, Rodrigo?
Well, I think Dupla passed very clearly on the topic. So when you receive your equipment and you do the whole disinfection of the surface, you are just ensured that your quarantine will be less than if you don't clean the surface of your equipment. But as he mentioned, you must see in which kind of ambient do you live and the historic of this equipment. Perhaps the clinic was just finishing the synthesization or finishing the cleaning of this equipment, then you don't need to wait so long on the quarantine. That's why the protocols, it's very important.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question that it comes from the guys that are watching us right now is from Enrique. And he's asking about any incrustation or any dirtiness inside the tubes, inside the circuits, inside the trachea. If we have that, if it appears inside the trachea, I don't even know if it's that common to have that inside the trachea, because the trachea is a accessory that we use it. But anyway, if you find that in the trachea, should it be cleaned or discarded? I mean, you mentioned already, Rodrigo, that it's important that you go and autoclavate the trachea, so that would, of course, be a way to kill every bacteria or virus that you have over there. But please start answering, Enrique, and Dupla, please join and jump to make your recommendations on that, please.
Okay, so if you have a kind of incrustation, I'm considering here if you have some substance along the surface, internal surface of these tracheas. Do you know? If you have those in the surface internally, so perhaps the autoclave, do you know, during the process, this will be dissolved because of the temperature, and this will be spilled out and then clean the surface. But if you have a kind of a crack or damage on the piece, then of course you cannot use anymore and you need to discard this, do you know? So then, by my understanding, depending on what it's incrusted there, you can use the autoclave, you know, to remove those particles and ensure that the piece is disinfected to be used again.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Any ideas? Any hospital have a center of sterilization of material, and we have many protocols to clean, disinfection, and sterilizing the tracheas. And if you have incrustation and not damage the trachea, the sterilization center and the infection control of the hospital is judgment. It's the trachea is can be used again or not can be used again, and it's so many here to they happens, but happens, and is judgments for infection control of the hospital and the electro material center, sterilization material center to decide that if all protocols for cleaning or disinfection and sterilizing the material, if it is capacity to use again or not. And it's important, if you have identified the trachea and have so many leak in the trachea, do not use it again because interfere in the mechanic of the ventilator.
Okay, great. Talking about the trachea or the circuits, as you call, we have one question that I want just to plug in here together with what we have discussed. Carlos just bring it. If after the use of circuits, actually, if that's a discardable material or accessory, should we use or reuse that? I mean, if I understand right, the question is that once you use a circuit, you should throw that away because it's discardable or not. I mean that if I understand a little bit about that, it's an accessory and you should reuse, right? Of course, you need to clean it, you need to disinfect, but the circuit is not dischargeable after one use, right? Is that right, Dupla?
It's correctly. The brief circuit is commonly past the sterilization center of in the hospital, and the clean, disinfection, and sterilize, and put the patient again. If you use the brief circuits only for the test in equipment, not in patients, you can use the same circuits many times and not to clean that. But if you use it in your patients, it's mandatory to clean, disinfection, and sterilization process determined for the manufacturer and the infection control center in the hospital.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Rodrigo.
Yeah, this is mainly because, guys, during the maintenance of those equipments, we are not doing the final version of the equipment to go to the hospital. After the maintenance, we need to disinfect the equipment again. We need to check the whole parts of the equipment to see if we have any contamination. You need to put in the autoclave the parts of the tracheas and so on. So you need to prepare the machine to send it back to the hospital. So while it's on the lab and you are testing this, you can reuse those parts without cleaning all the time those parts.
Okay, great. Another question before you go for your platform speech, Rodrigo. There is one you mentioned during your presentation, Rodrigo, and I know that Dupla also has a lot of remarks about that. And that's the third live that we go international. We developed that already, I think 6 or 7 times nationally speaking, and we always have this kind of question. And I need that's very important question that comes from Marvelu. Yeah, I don't know if I say that right. Sorry for that. But actually, we are talking about the operation manuals and the service manuals. And then Rodrigo talked about that. But I would like Dupla to make your remarks on that point. I know that some of these are considered intellectual property of the manufacturers. So during the epidemic that we are going through right now, some of them open this kind of information, but it's not open source material, right? I mean, part of the, you can correct me, but if I'm not mistaken, operation manuals, okay, you find that usually, but service manuals, not really. It will depend on the approval and the use, or the approval should be used by the manufacturer. So if I to not miss any point of the question, I will read it like it is right now in the live. Every equipment comes with a service manual. During maintenance, are you to work with the manufacturer specification and service manual or without it? So it's important, of course, to use the materials, the manuals during the process. But please, Dupla, just rephrase if I said something wrong. But please explain to us what about the operation manuals and the service manual and what we have to do with those kind of manuals, please.
Okay, unfortunately, the service manuals don't come up together. The equipments, it's a intellectual property. Manufacturers independently open the service manuals for everyone. But in the maintenance, when I have the service manual, the team follow up the instructions of the service manual. When I don't have the service manual, it is the time if you count the experience of the technical mechanical device, the technicians of mechanical device, the clinical engineers have some experience to ventilators. The principle of the work of all ventilators is the same. You need to push the air, breathe same parameters inside the lung of the patient and the aspiration naturally. If you know that, if you have same experience and training of the technicians and the clinical engineers, you can test every equipment to the natural function of that. But if you have the service manual, it's have instruction what do you have to do to repair the equipment. It's more easily to repair when you have the service manual. When you don't have it, you need some type of expertise and knowledge of the technicians and the clinical engineers.
Great, Dupla. Thank you very much. I would like you, Rodrigo, now to continue your presentation. I know that you're going to show the experience about the platform, how we use it, and what we did to share the information, even the manuals that Dupla just mentioned about, and then all this material is available, and then we create this national collaboration platform. Of course, it's a specific one, but it would be nice that other countries, if decided to go through the process of maintenance and repair of these ventilators, that they could use that, right? So please go for your next presentation.
Yes, Daniel, I think was very happy to hear when you mentioned that promote this ecosystem with many units together, it's not easy. So, and one way that we found to put the people more close to each other, that they can collaborate with each other in this nice initiative of the maintenance of the ventilators, the mechanical ventilators, is to create a platform. This is very helpful. It's been very helpful here for us, because there I can put the files, I can put also the manuals, I can put the state of each equipment where I am working in my unit here, and then the other units can also share the information. And most important, the best practice, that each unit is adopting the labs and so on to work in a proper way. So I also have a kind of an online chat that I can communicate with the managers of the other sites, and put the whole information together. Here we are using a simple platform from Microsoft, but I'm sure that you guys have other platforms available in your institute and can use this. I would highlight this is a very important to have, because can be a unique place where you share the information with the other initiatives, and then you can collaborate, maybe sharing experience, maybe sharing the best practice that you have, and also to share your KPIs, that you have a unique information about all numbers that it's running inside of your facility. So here I'm passing some attention points that you need to keep in mind before you start such a lab, such an initiative there in your country, in your city, or in your state. So first, you will need a financial support, because you need to acquire infrastructure, maybe some equipment, and for sure, the pieces that need to be changed and replaced in your ventilator. So you can put this together with the industry and the governmental in your local area in order to collect some funding to help you in this task. You will need the professional guys from the clinic engineers. So this you can find in contact with the hospitals and with the clinics, and also maybe you have an organization that have the whole numbers and the whole name of those professional guys in your region, and then it's easier to contact them. They must take part in your procedure there. So together with the specialized technicians, they are the guys that knows what is going on the medical equipment and the best practice, how to do the maintenance on them. So you will need the calibration and the safety tests, on the equipment after the maintenance. So of course you will need the minimum infrastructure. As Duplat already mentioned, you need to have those artificial lines, you need to have those electric circuits and so on, that you can check the discharging of your machine and all operation of your machine. So it's mandatory that you have this minimal infrastructure there. So the next slide will continue with the attention points. So where we will pass now to the questions. I thought that we have another one there. So, but my main message for you guys is that you need to keep following the whole recommendation from the regularizations, the organs that have in your country, in your city, that you can take the advice from them and do the best way and the right way to do in your region.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rodrigo, very much. Before I go again for other questions, I want to go through a video, and the video I will ask the guys to not play the audio because I want to explain the phases, even though you know that the subtitles are there and you could go, but I think that we did that the other times and that was better. So I want you to go through the process internally, how we are doing here at CIMATEC. So, and then after that, I go back with Dupla and Rodrigo for more and for further questions. Okay, so during the video, I think that, yeah, please play the video right now. So you're gonna see internally how we receive. So first, Bruno is a colleague of ours, is showing where we start the process. So we just use the process in this area to receive the material, to register that. It's really important that you take pictures, that you register everything. And then in the other bench, you go for the cleaning process. And then there was a process, and then you consider and use all the equipment that is for safety. And then this is the area for quarantine. In our case, as we already explained, 48 hours. So after these 48 hours, we go for the internal cleaning process. And then sometimes these equipments are really taking too much time without out of order, so we do that. So we have right now 3 lines. That's one of them for maintenance. And in this bench, for example, we have one engineer that is detecting and doing the evaluation of the ventilator to define if it goes for electronic or a mechanical bench. And then you'll see both over there where you perform the maintenance. And then you see Dupla in the screen again. He's just performing the calibration, and then he have the analysis over there and do the calibration in the electrical safety part. And then once it's approved, it's go for the final cleaning here. and then we have one guy that prepares, that print all the certificates of the ventilator. Here you see in the screen how we register everything. So in that screen, we have the registerment of all the process. Once we have started here, we actually take pictures and we have all the material there. And then we register everything. If we need to change, if you buy some part, and then we do that in this process. And it's really important because we receive from many hospitals. We have, of course, same model for different hospitals. So we need to take care. And Rodrigo just mentioned that during his presentation, that is important that you keep all the accessories and all the parts together to avoid misunderstanding and take one part from one hospital for another model for the other hospital. So I want right now to come back with Dupla and Rodrigo, and then we will go through the questions. Before I start with the questions, I want once more to repeat what I said, that was really nice for having you both here with us and with this kind of presentation. So let me just, because we have right now, they are informing that I have maybe 10 minutes. So let me go and start with that here. So Daniel just mentioned and just asked about the process of cleaning, Rodrigo. And we just mentioned that we use the solution and also the alcohol. And he's asking, can we use other products for the cleaning of these boxes and equipment? I mean, can we use other materials, please?
Yes, you can also use some detergent, some soaps, okay, to clean the surface of the boxes that arrive to you. You can also use a kind of solution with this sanitary water, you know, in this certain concentration of 20%, 25%, that you can also ensure that this is cleaning the whole surface and killing the whole virus and bacteria that have on the surface of your box. But again, it's usually necessary or recommended to use those kind of vaporizers, you know, where you can spray along the whole surface and not you only using those kind of manual activities to clean, you know.
Yeah, you just mentioned we in our case we are using the sodium hypochlorite for the disinfection of paper box, and we are using the 70% alcohol for disinfecting the surface of the equipment, right? And of course, for the internal treatment, we already explained about the quarantine. But as you mentioned, there are other possibilities for hospital disinfectants, right? That can be used just chlorinide, deoxide, disinfectants, quaternary ammonium. So there are others that can be used as well. But it's important that you test if this actually can be used for this material. So thank you for that question, Rodrigo. I will jump in for the next one that G. Coelho just asked. How do these tests in the equipment? How to do the tests in the equipment? Do I need some accessories to do it? I think that's really nice questions, Dupla, because you mentioned about the infrastructure, right? But there are some parts like the tracheas, as you mentioned, like some valves that should come with the equipment, because we don't have as many. There is a high diversity of models, and then these accessories should come with the equipment. So can you help me to answer this question, please?
Yes. When I say before, the equipment have to be all accessories. The complete brief circuits of the sensor of flow, oxygen sensor, expiratory valve, and the two tracheas specifically for the model of the ventilators. And you use it for the all test, the analyze ventilator test, equipment and test lung to use to reproduce the common ventilation of the patients. It's all tests make a final test in the calibration table, and the calibration process tests all parameters, all points of the parameters, all points of points have is acceptably to use the patient because using the norms. If you don't if you don't test the ventilators, you don't assure the ventilator is safety for the patients. And you need the complete circuit briefing and the ventilator analyzing the test long minimum to test security, the functional of the ventilator.
Great, thank you. I will ask you to try to answer. There are some questions I want you to answer, but let's try to do a little faster because I want to have the final comments on you. So we have another question by Shilulu. That is, how do we calibrate the ventilators? Is that stipulated, defined in the ventilator instructional manual? Dupla, can you help me on that?
Okay, use the ICO 6061, trace 1, trace 12, good practice of manufacture to mechanical ventilators, and use the operation manuals. Have the characters of the parameters, have the accept little help these views. Little help, Daniel.
Deviation, deviation.
A deviation of the parameters. If you set 30 on any parameters, you have 10%, 5% of deviation in the operation manual, and use the norm and choose the best of the series of patients in the tests. Okay,
great. There are other questions. I will let it go through them really fast. I think there is one. There is a comment more than a question that is related to how we should keep the maintenance in the hospitals. I think that, of course, it was a marvelous set-on question. Actually, if there's a good idea for the hospital and maintenance personnel to have a routine for scheduled maintenance, of course, it's really important that we have this. Is the best idea is that the hospital has a clinic group and do that and repair and do that as a prevent basis and not only corrective basis. So that's, of course, really important to be developed. There are other questions about the research just put in the live, how to tell if the equipment is safe or not to use. Mainly, it depends not only related to disinfecting, but actually in the process of use of the equipment. So actually, we define if the equipment is good or not to use, mainly based on the performance of calibration and testing. That's what we do, right? Of course, there is a care about the disinfection, but it's not a mandatory in terms of defining the quality of the performance of the equipment. Of course, if you have, for example, exhalation valve inside the equipment, that it would be a problem, but it's not the case for the ones that is already approved to be used. So I think that's more a performance-based one. So thank everybody for the questions. I don't want to go many time after the 2 hours live, but I would like for the final remarks for Rodrigo and Dupla just to say your final words in this live. Please, Rodrigo, can you start?
Yep. So yeah, guys, what can I say? We are doing our best to help the society in this strange moment of the pandemic. You know, we are offering our professional skills here, our facility, to help the community to depend less on the machines that are not available for them. So we are doing the maintenance of the machine to dispose these machines for the critical patients in the hospital. And we are very, very happy to do that. And we encourage you in your city, in your country, to do the same activities. Please be aligned with the government and the health organization of your region to ensure that the activity is legal and that you can help the hospitals on bringing up these equipments back to work. So thank you, Daniel, for inviting me. Thank you for whole initiative, and congratulations for this nice work at SENAI CIMATEC.
Great. Dupla, please, your final words in that live.
First, thank you again for the invitation. I think for an personal type of a way, I think it's the very sensitive moment, the humanity passed for this pandemic. everyone have to do what he can do to help each others, and we have to do our parts, and everyone have to do your parts of which are the minimal part, but every part is important. And the ventilators is very important for the process of the critical patients of COVID, and we need to use the maximum capacity of the ventilators it's possible. The uptime of the ventilators is maximum for the user if needed to use the patients, and we have to go to do our part of this process, and everyone needs to do that. It's very good for the humanity.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much for both of you, and for the team, the people that are watching us right now. We just saw the address, the web page address, that one that you are seeing right now is the one that for CIMATEC. I would like that Marx to put the other one. The other one is from the material. Every material that we just presented here will be available. We have them available in Spanish, in English, and now in English, but also in Portuguese. But we have all the material available in this website, the cimatecombatcovid.com.br. So you go there and you download all the material, and also there you can talk with us, and then you can send some questions and send your comments. That was really nice to have all of you here. I would like to remark the partners of this initiative in Brazil. There are many. I name it each one of them in the beginning of the live, but I would like you to know all the companies that are supporting this initiative, and all of them, I would, let's say, in the name of SENAI, thank you very much. We know that is a voluntary network. You're not getting any money doing that, so you are helping to save lives. I mean, of course, that is the healthcare and the medical doctors, professionals are the ones to do that, but we are helping them to save lives. So that's what I know that motivates everyone, every single one of us. As I mentioned before, in Brazil, we have more than 700 people already involved. So thank you once more, Rodrigo. Thank you, Dupla. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody that was watching us today. And this live will also be available in our official YouTube address at SENAI CIMATEC, so you can download it and watch it there again. And please send us any comment that you have. Thank you very much. We are here for you as you need it. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.